Great.
You're ready, huh? Okay. Well, let me try and get my PowerPoint back here and let's get rolling. I don't know why all you people have to be late.
And all the vendors have spoken except for Paul. He I think had to run. He's probably running into Home Depot or something. It looks like he's out there working, but he was the only vendor that didn't get a chance to speak.
Okay. All right. Let me get my presentation up here.
Is Paul still one of the sponsors or contractors?
No, he's not.
Okay.
So we you've all heard me talk about one second. I don't do more than one thing very good at a time, so okay, can you see the PowerPoint now?
No. Are you sharing your page?
Well, I didn't
There
do
we
it
go.
properly. I didn't do it
We got
properly, evidently.
I can see it.
Okay, now you can see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So since you've asked, Ryan, I don't normally talk about this when sponsors leave, but there's certain criteria that sponsors have to meet, in order to be a sponsor, and they have to do certain things to take care of members and stuff. And Paul and I had to have a discussion and come to the agreement that he was no longer a sponsor. Okay. So we are looking for new rehab sponsor, new general contractor, and looking for ideas and recommendations for anyone that you may use and like. And if you want to know more, we can talk offline, but if you have some ideas, I'd be happy to entertain them. Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
Somebody start to say something? Okay. Let me see if I can get back to where I was. I in all the years I've been doing Zoom calls, I've never seen that happen, where you were all talking and could hear each other, but I couldn't hear it. I don't know what happened. Okay, so everybody's done with this, right? I hope you all said good things.
Yep.
Okay, Think Realty is another one of our sponsors. You can get a free account if you don't have it already. Highly recommend you go create that free account here. You can scan the QR code or click the link. And then once you've created the Think Realty account, you have to go in and create your account specifically with each of these vendors. The one I use the most is the Home Depot Pro Specialty for things like ceiling fans, doorknobs, window blinds, stuff like that. Okay. You can save a lot of money. They don't have everything. You're going to see that sometimes they can't beat it. They can't beat the pricing of Home Depot, but other times they beat it by a long shot. So you'll have a personal rep assigned to you. And sometimes you can call that rep and they can get you a much better price on those products than what they will on the website. So just highly recommend. It doesn't cost you anything to have it, but I highly recommend you go use it and try and make your business more profitable by getting these kind of discounts. Okay. lot there to take advantage of. Sponsors, these are the types of services that we're looking for in our sponsors, that we although we don't have a written exclusivity type sponsorship, all of our sponsors are exclusive. We don't have more than one note buyer. We don't have more than one conventional lender, more than one hard money lender. But we're looking for all of these different types of people. We have one roofer, we're looking for rehab contractors, make-ready services, locksmith, cabinet maker, all those kinds of people, an investment property, insurance company. I'd like to find us a good property insurance rep as well as a good foundation company. And again, those folks have to pass my grandmother's rule and have to take good care of the members. So please think of that. And if there's companies that you use, please refer them to me and let's get them involved in the group.
Tim, I'd like to be considered as the realtor. I have 33 years in the industry, licensed in California and Texas.
Well, thank you very much for that. Let's have a conversation this next week.
And I do have a new contractor that just moved here from Colorado. He's a new home builder, but he's trying to create more business, and he's appearing. I'm talking to him and taking him to sites for possible investments.
Well, thank you very much for that. Let's have a conversation this next week.
All righty.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So we already talked about the property listings page, but you can just scan the QR code. We're trying to make this easy for everybody. We've implemented more QR codes in the presentation and other places on the website, so you can just scan it with your phone. If you happen to find any bad QR codes, please let us know so we can go fix it. Or you can just click the link. Okay. Upcoming events, you can go here and register. You know how to do that, but I'm again just trying to make it easy for you if you're on this presentation. For the ladies on the call, these calls are going very good, so I've been told. And
I enjoyed them.
Yeah, I know Devin has commented on it several times, Ruth Ann, Sarah. Please encourage others to participate. The more experience and stuff we have in these calls, the better off for everybody. And JJ works hard at trying to have good content and stuff for these calls. So highly recommend that we get others to attend and promote it so that it grows. And hopefully it's worthwhile to JJ as well for taking the time to put together content. So
she's excellent.
What's that?
She's very good, JJ.
Good. And I've heard that. So okay. Topic of the month. Why are we here today? What's in a note? Bring your notes. So Robin has been, I can't do her any justice trying to give you the background on Robin, but she's been in the business a very long time, and she lives, sleeps, breathes, eats notes. Did you even do notes when you were on travel and on your vacation, Robin?
No, but I have an Airbnb I was still dealing with.
Okay. So, but Robin's been with us for a long time, highly experienced in notes. And, she is just, so kind and wanting to share her time and stuff with us and the group. And I just encourage everybody to listen and ask questions and learn from Robin. And Robin's been with us, a sponsor with us for how many years, Robin? Do you know? It's been
No, I don't. You'd have to tell me. I don't know.
It's been a very long time. I should know these things, but I don't. But we've really appreciated Robin being a part of the group and teaching us periodically and stuff. So, Robin, did you have a PowerPoint that you wanted to use today, or no?
I do. Yeah. So you'll have to.
You can either bring
Walk
it
me
up
through.
and share it, or you can send it to me and I'll run it for you. Either one.
Doesn't matter. Let me. Okay. So I guess just share. I guess I can put it over. I'm not sure how to do the formatting when I want to see everybody's faces and still have my PowerPoint on the same screen. I guess I just move it over. That's where I'm not the
think
most
it'll
tech
just
savvy
move it.
person. Okay. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I can do that. So I don't know how I can still see you guys though.
Well, you're not going to see, it's not going to show everybody like you see in the gallery view.
Oh, okay.
If you look in the top right of your Zoom screen, you should see view. And you can choose the different, gallery is the one where it shows everybody, but I don't think you're going to be able to show everybody during the PowerPoint.
Okay. That's fine. Okay. I just like to see people's, okay. So, okay. So I have the PowerPoint up. I don't know how to get rid of that one screen on the side. I guess it doesn't matter.
Is there an X in the box to that right? The one on
No,
the
it's
side?
just, I mean, I've always done this with a projector, I guess is the reason, or USB in the laptop. I haven't done it with Zoom. So how do you, I don't know how to get rid of those things. It doesn't really matter.
Hey,
You want
Robin?
to share the screen or?
Yeah, just click
Go back to
share,
Zoom.
open your PowerPoint, then
Yeah,
go to
it's
share,
open.
go to share
Hold
and
on.
click on the PowerPoint and then click the share button.
Yeah, let me, here we go.
Hey, Robin, do you have both a phone and a PC?
Do I have a phone?
And a
A
PC?
cell phone?
Because, yeah,
Your cell phone?
Yeah.
you can join the Zoom session twice. Use one for the
Oh.
presentation and the other to look at the gallery if that makes you more comfortable during the presentation.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I can't, my phone, I can't do much with it. It's too small for me to read. So I don't, that's okay. Share, where's the share? on this?
Normally it's in the bottom. Look for a bright
what I thought.
green button.
There we go. There it goes. Now it comes up. Okay.
And then it's going to ask you which slide you want to share. There you go. Now
There
we
we
go
go.
to presentation mode.
All right. Now we're here. Okay. So throughout this, and I'll tell you, when I was putting this PowerPoint together, I mean, there's so much information. I was trying to be as basic, if you will, about this. And so feel free, if y'all have questions, to ask the questions on the chat, anytime, stop me anytime. There's no rhyme or reason for any of this. I'm just kind of trying to do something to educate you all a little bit. But a little bit of background, Tim was awfully nice about his introduction for me. I actually started in real estate back in, I don't remember, 87, I think it was. And I've done a lot of things. I have a broker's license. I don't really use it as a broker, but I had it for a long time, so just keep it. But most of my background was commercial, and it was appraising and brokering. And when I really got burned out with all that in 2012, I heard Eddie Speed, he's a mentor, come and speak at a real estate club meeting, and was real interested in him talking about notes. And of course, that was a really good time to get into notes, because we were still recovering from the 07, 08 and all that stuff going on. Anyway, yeah. So fast forward, at that point, I should say about 2012, I went all in. I had a few listings on some an assisted living and an independent living facility, and I just did whatever I could just try to get those things sold because I wanted to concentrate 100% on notes. And to me, it's notes is like any other real estate arm. You really, I don't think you can do a good job if you are trying to do 5 different things. I think you really need to pick one and specialize. If you're going to be a flipper, then just concentrate on that. I just don't think you can do a whole lot. Now, having said that, I will say that I think notes are a very good way for you to build up your IRA account. And not enough people do that. There is a little bit of work involved, but whether you're going to, and I say that you're buying the note, you're actually, it's the same really as you're lending typically to somebody. And you don't have any hands-on, you don't, because you're not supposed to with your IRA, have any hands-on, workout on that note. But it's a way versus your note sitting in your IRA drawing 1% or something like that.
Robin, did you say it is a good way or is not a good way to build your IRA?
It is a very good way. A very good way. Yes. Okay. I don't know what the number is currently, but I know that last 2022, there were billions of dollars in people's IRA accounts sitting there doing nothing, drawing half a point at that time, if that. And when you've got an IRA, you're paying a fee to that custodian every year. Now there are fees involved for you to lend money and invest in a note, but it's not. But at least your money is doing something. So anyway, and that's a whole nother subject. I'm happy to talk to somebody or email me or whatever, and I can send you some more information. I'd say all of my note investing is done through my solo 401k Roth. And if you look at a table of the different types of IRAs, the solo 401k Roth would be the furthest on the right, has the most options for you. And all you need to do is to have an income away from a W-2. Now, if it's the W-2, if you do have W-2 income and it's, let's say it's your real estate business, then you could still set up the solo 401k. And of course you want a Roth because you want that tax-free income. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. And that's what all this is about is going into how I'm putting money into these notes through my 401k. Okay, next page. Let's see where we go. Here we go here. So Robin, what is a note? Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just got my traditional IRA moved to equity trust for a self-directed.
Self-directed, yeah.
Yes. Is that something I should have looked into the solo 401 IRA first?
Well, I mean, you can do that. I would suggest you look into the solo, and equity trust can give you a lot of information because even with the solo 401k, even though you have checkbook control, you still have to have a servicer, a custodian. And so they can give you a lot of information. I would contact them and they can tell you the ins and outs and what you need to do.
Okay. I was going to use my self-directed to lend from my IRA, as you suggested.
You can still do that. You can still do that.
Thank you.
So what is a note? Simple. It's just a promise to pay. I get a lot of talk to a lot of note sellers, mom and pops, and it's a one-time deal and they want par value. Let's say the balance is $100,000 and they want $100,000 for that note. And I'm like, no. I mean, if you find somebody to pay that, go for it. But the thing is, what you have is a piece of paper that says somebody promises to pay you. There's no guarantee that they're going to pay you. So why would I give you the full amount of the note, take over the note, and then I have to sit and wait 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years for somebody to pay me back? And you're getting all the money now. That just doesn't make sense. So anyway, it is just a promise to pay. And there are all types of notes out there, a lot of unsecured notes, but what we do and what the only thing that I will really look at is anything that's secured by real estate. I'd much rather have that security by the real estate than I would somebody's personal guarantee. So I don't care about a personal guarantee, because anybody can file bankruptcy and there's all kinds of ways to get out of that. Okay. So here, some of my tidbits of information. Contrary to what a lot of people think, they think note investing is easy and all, it's a winner every time. Well, that's not the case. There's still some work involved. It's not totally passive. You can, if you buy a portfolio of notes, which you can, similar to a mutual fund, it would be like you might buy from a hedge fund, you might buy 3 or 4 notes at one time. You might find a burnt out landlord who's got some notes on some properties that he financed for somebody, and he's wanting to get out of the business, wants the cash, needs the cash. And so you can buy a small portfolio of notes just as easily as you can buy a single note. Diversify. I've always been one of those that, and I don't like to put everything in one location. So when I first got in the business, there was tons of notes available in the Midwest. Amazing to me that in the Midwest, the number of notes that were in default, and these people were still living in their house, which is a good thing because you want somebody to live there and hopefully take care of it and it not become vacant and start to deteriorate. But these people had been living there 4, 5, 6, 7 years and had not made a note payment. And one of the biggest reasons for that was that the lenders were typically large lenders at that time, Countrywide, Bank of America. I mean, there's a whole slew of them. Half of them aren't even in business anymore. And for them to file foreclosure was very expensive. What typically might cost $3,000 to $5,000 for me to file foreclosure on a property in Ohio would cost that lender $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. And you wonder why? Well, because they have attorneys on retainer. Attorneys are, no offense to any attorneys, but they're slow. They move at a turtle's pace. And back then, they had so many foreclosures, they were just overwhelmed, and the courts were overwhelmed. So it was just, it was just crazy. But I don't believe in did not believe and still do not buy notes in, let's say, 4 states. I diversify as much as possible because it's just like anything else. If the economy starts to tank and you've got everything in 1 or 2 states, you're not spreading your money around. The risk is all in one area and it could really hit you hard. So I'm a big believer in making sure you diversify. And I have a little side note there that says save some money for capital for expenses. If you've got $25,000 in your IRA and you go buy a note for $22,000, I would not give you that kind of advice. You need to make sure you have some money put aside, because if you do have to foreclose, you may have to carry forced place insurance. I mean, there's expenses that are still involved. And so you don't want to spend all your money just buying the note. And I have seen people do that. It's really sad. I remember there was an older couple. I say older, they're probably my age, but they had bought a note, and turned out that the property was in just horrible, horrible condition. And they needed to spend some money to either rehab it and rent it, or at least spend a little bit of money to get anybody to even buy it from them, because it was a non-performing note. There was nobody living in the house. They had no money. They had already spent all their money on buying this note. And I don't know whatever happened to them. It was kind of a sad situation because they had put in spent $75,000, $80,000. So don't do that. Don't do
Robin,
that.
what's a ballpark price now for having to file a foreclosure on somebody?
Well, every state's different, of course, but I mean, it still runs about the same. I still would estimate somewhere between $3,000 to $6,000, depending on what state you're in.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I had to do that, but I couldn't remember.
Well, and of course, you're not going to pay all the cost up front. It's kind of dished out. Now, I'm sure everybody on this call knows, in Texas, we have one of the fastest foreclosure states in the country. So you'll spend that money pretty fast. But, you're not, it's not going to be billed to you all at once. You'll have, you're paying a little bit here and a little bit there. But yeah, it's still $3,000 to $6,000. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Oh my gosh. If somebody, and this goes along with the comment below, if you've never lost money on a deal, you're probably not doing many deals, or you're not telling the truth. Everybody loses some money. There's just no question about it. There's nothing totally risk-free about investing, period. And it doesn't matter whether it's real estate or anything else. That's my opinion. Okay, so rare to make a home run on a first, more likely on seconds. These are my personal opinions and based on my experience and all, and in some of the conversations I've had with some of my other note buddies. First, you can make home runs on first if you're willing to go through the whole process. A lot of people get scared, and let's say the borrower moves out and you're afraid what to do. So you end up turning around selling that note, and you take a haircut for it. And so then you really don't make any money. The reason seconds are a good investment, but it does take, I think, a little more knowledge and more time. I don't recommend people buying seconds if you don't have any experience with notes, because they are definitely riskier. But on the other hand, the discounts are much better. Now, I don't see as many seconds out there available right now as I did 10 years ago, but I still get emails with seconds that are available. And they're kind of their own little game away from the first liens. Second thing, be patient, pick the right time to pursue aggressively. So again, when it depends on the state, and I'm referring to different states because if you want to buy everything in Texas, that's fine, but it's going to limit you. And if you think about it this way, and a lot of people are afraid to do that, but think about this. If you went to Ruth Ann and you wanted to get a typical mortgage, their company, and can't say this for Ruth Ann for sure, but a lot of these lenders will turn around and sell off some of their notes. It's very common practice. If you got a note on your home and 3 to 6 months after you got it, you probably got a notice that said your note is being moved to another company. And so you could no telling where you could be and where, and why limit yourself to just Texas. Texas doesn't have as many notes out there available to buy as they do in other states. And the 3 to 4 years is typically because you're either trying to do a workout with the borrower, maybe it's vacant, maybe you have to go through foreclosure, or it could just be that the borrower ends up paying off, gets refinances or decides to pay off the loan, and that can happen. 3 to 4 years, 10 years, you just never know. Never, ever buy a note that you wouldn't want to own the property. And that's the very first thing I always look at. Worst case scenario, I got to buy, I have to, own the deed. I have to own the property. And for a lot of people, you guys that are flippers and all that kind of stuff, man, that's what you want. You want the real estate. Well, I don't. I just want to be the bank. I don't want to deal with the real estate for a lot of reasons. And we'll go into a little bit of that a little later on. But
Right.
make sure you look and see that is something that if you end up having to take it over, you can do something with it. And you're
Rob?
not afraid to. Yeah.
Back to your comment about not many notes in Texas, and some people only want to buy in Texas and some people go everywhere. I would think that the fact that we're one of the quickest states for foreclosure, I would think that buying in Texas would be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of people would want to do that.
Oh, they do. But the availability of notes is not near as high as it is in other states.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that at least in the last 15 years or whatever that I've been in dealing with notes, Texas has a very diversified economy. Used to be back in the 80s, when I first got into real estate and all, we were much heavier in oil and gas, and there wasn't as much diversification. And so that's just my thinking. I think it just everybody wants to come to Texas, where we have no income tax in Texas. Texas has always been a draw. I mean, even back in the early 90s when I was brokering other kinds of properties, we had people from California constantly knocking on our door wanting to buy in Texas. It's just always been that way.
I just figured that there's a lot of owner finance stuff going on here, so I figured there'd probably be an abundance of notes.
Not that people are willing to sell.
Mm.
I mean, look at yourself. You've got notes, but you don't want to sell them.
No, you're right.
So
because people are paying on them, they're not going bad. They're not.
Yes, that's the majority of them.
Okay.
We just don't have as many defaults on a percentage basis compared to other states.
Interesting.
Okay. Good.
So this is being the bank is not a passive investment. Now, that's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. For me, it's not a passive investment, which is fine. That's what I want. I like dealing with the homeowners and trying to help them to get their note paying again, to modify it if need be. But I also have investors that just want to be totally passive, and I will sell a partial of a payment to them. And I stay in the deal, but I do all the work. So if that borrower does stop paying, I have several different ways to make sure the note is paid to that investor, so he maintains that truly passive position. But if you're wanting to get into it, learn it, and all that other stuff, don't think that you can just buy a note and just sit back and go back to your W-2 job. It doesn't happen that way. There are some things you have to do.
Mm.
I like this one. It's a funny thing. The more I practice, the luckier I get. Practice makes perfect. Okay. So what is note investing? Well, lending secured by a mortgage or a deed of trust, seller carryback notes, private notes. And they're all over the place in terms of what type of notes are out there. Then there's always the defaulted institutional notes, and they're not always all defaulted, but because what will happen is when a lot of these big buyers, hedge funds, that sort of thing, when they go buy a big pool of notes from somebody who wants to sell some off from another big buyer, they're buying performing notes that are doing great. They're buying notes that are semi-performing, meaning that a borrower is paying, he pays every 45 days, or he pays 3 months on time, and then the next month he gets behind. Or he paid the last 6 months and then he hadn't paid in 3 months. Those are what we call semi-performing. Or could be RPL, reperforming loan. They stop paying and they start paying again. Scratch and dent notes. Those are notes that there's just one little thing about the note that the underwriter didn't do right, or the borrower did not provide the right information, and they don't catch it until after they've underwritten the note and after they have loaned the money. We call those scratch and dent. And those are good notes to buy, because some of the issues that come up, that's fine. Those are for the big guys to worry about. I'm not going to worry about some little scratch and dent that the borrower, forgot to put down something on his credit report or his application. And I'm not concerned about that. The big lenders, they want everything to be check the box. But if that's what we worried about, we'd never be able to buy a note. So scratch and dents are great. So here we go. Where to buy? Okay, hedge funds. Those guys, they buy directly from the lenders, the big lenders. But to do that, you've got to have, some of them require a minimum of $15 million. And you've got to be able to take the whole pool, whatever they offer, and you may get we call it a tape. It's actually a list of notes, and there may be 262 notes listed. Well, if you're the hedge fund looking at this, you buy the whole thing. It doesn't make any difference what's on there, what's performing, what's not performing. You can run your statistics and you can look at, certain notes and all, but they're not going to sell. They're not going to let you just pick out the ones you want. So, which is great. Somebody's got to do it. And the big guys, they turn around and they sell it to people like me or small private investors who will buy 20 notes or something like that. Direct from banks. Oh, a lot of people say you can do that. I have never experienced anybody able to do that, but I'll always like to mention that, because there are some note gurus, some mentors out there that will steer you into direction into going and contacting your local bank and this and that. I just don't see that at this day and time, it's not really a possible choice in my book. And the reason is because the guy at the bank, he may be your brother-in-law, but he doesn't have any say on what can be sold. And a lot of these notes are securitized together. So they have to, FDIC and the bank's guidelines they're the ones that tell them what they can sell and what they can't sell. There has to be, it can't just be, oh, there's a house down the street and I know somebody moved out and I bet there's a note on it and I'll just go to the bank and see if I can buy the note. Good luck. To me, it's a waste of time. But, if you think you can do it, go for it.
I've heard a lot of the gurus pitch that strategy, but I don't know of anybody that's ever done it.
I don't either. And a lot of the good gurus, they don't ever recommend that. They'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you, that it's just not a feasible method. Legitimate brokers, there are a lot of people out there that broker notes. I do a little bit, but that's not my main focus. And but the ones that you have to be careful, because there are what we call joker brokers. And I know in the commercial real estate listing world, we had some similar type people. We didn't call them broker jokers, but somebody will take your note, take your information that you're trying to sell and copy it and put their logo on it or their name and try to sell the note. And if you are talking to a broker, that's great. They're going to make a little money off of it. Well, they have to make some money. You can't not buy the note just because they're making a few $1,000s. But what you want to ask them is, do you have direct contact with the note holder? And if they cannot provide you with the information you request within a reasonable amount of time, and I'm saying 48 hours. I mean, this day and time, they should be able to provide something in 24 hours by email. But if they can't provide something, then I would question their, where they are in this little loop of people. Because there's a lot of broker jokers. And what they do is, it's not like wholesaling. So in a wholesale, they have a contract with the homeowner, but a broker joker, all he does is he may have talked to another broker and gotten some information on the note, but he doesn't have any documentation. And so what he's trying to do is turn around and sell it to you and make a fee, and then the original broker will make a fee. Just don't get involved with people like that. It's just bad business, and you'll waste a lot of time too, and it makes you look bad too. Servicing companies, FCI is one of the servicing companies. They have an arm where they do sell some notes. They are it's not real. They're not their notes. They're just servicing the notes, but they have investors who have notes being serviced by them that say, hey, I have these notes that I want to sell. And so FCI has a place for them to put those notes up for sale. And you can go in and look and see what they have. And FCI is a very good servicing company. They're nationwide. Not all the servicers have that. In fact, most don't. Most don't have a list or anything like that. But there are also some websites, and here's some websites I listed. There's quite a few others out there, but they do come and go. PaperStack is a really good one. Auction.com has some. Loanmarket.net. Sometimes with this day and time, some of them have slowed down and have even closed the doors. But these are three that you should be able to just look up and see just play with it and see what you find. And if you have questions, send off, your questions to them. Another source is just a mail campaign. It's not as easy as it sounds, because you do have to either go through the county records, which can be very time consuming, and you don't get all of the information you need, or you could buy a list. There are people that sell lists of where notes are, who has notes out there, whether it's an individual's name or it's in a trust or whatever. And then you do a mail campaign. It's time consuming. It's just like sending out a postcard or a letter for trying to buy a house. I mean, it's really no different. It's just that you're looking for the notes versus I would say that it's probably harder because you're not finding all the information you need. It's not all public, especially in Texas, since we're a non-disclosure state. Mm-hmm. There's not as much information as you might find in some other states.
I'm pretty sure you can but I'm pretty sure you can get a list off of Real Flow that you could use as a mail campaign. But the one thing that I want to just stress to everybody on the call, it's like buying a list to go market to sellers. There's no such thing as 100% accurate list. When you buy a list, it's not going to be accurate. People move, change addresses, and the system is slow to respond to get caught up with new addresses and stuff. So you're going to have a lot of returns when you do those mailings, but if you keep mailing it and you clean it up each time you get the returns, then you'll have a lot better list in the future. But it's never going to be 100%.
Not even close to it, because what happens with the notes, so you may get a list and let's say you got 100 names on there. Well, they are slow to catch up. What could have happened is the note has been sold, the borrower paid off the note, and until you send some, and I know a lot of note investors that get a lot of this email campaign from, or mailing campaign from, postcards from people looking to buy their note, and they're like, man, I sold this note 4 years ago.
Same here. I've got those. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit, I mean, to me, the only way to really do your research, but would be very time consuming, either training somebody or doing it yourself. And you'd have to actually dig into the county records. And it's not so easy, because we've had a VA help us with doing this a little bit. Not all notes are, the format is not always the same. So unless for yourself, you know exactly what to look for, but you've got to train somebody if they're going to do it for you. It's not always in the same place. It may not have the correct information that you're looking for. I mean, it's very time consuming, but it can be done. What to watch out for? Well, I've already said broker jokers, but there's also unscrupulous note sellers. So, and what I mean is somebody who does hold the note, but they're not giving you all the information, and you're willing to make a deal. Don't ever send them any money until you got everything checked off the box. Because there are just some people out there that will, sell you anything. You could be sold a house on a piece of property and find out after you get all the documentation that, oh, that's the house next door. I mean, all kinds of things come up. I know a guy, in fact, who first got into the business, and he actually bought a note from a hedge fund group. And of course, when you're buying a note, now, if it's in your backyard, yeah, you could drive by and go look at it. But if you're buying something in another state or another city, you can't just hop in the car and drive, 5 hours down to the coast to go look at this house. You have to think about it like the bank does. The bank doesn't send anybody out. They have an appraiser, but they don't actually have anybody at the bank when they're buying, loaning this money that goes and looks at the inside of the house. I mean, if you're buying notes, you don't get to look at the inside of the house. You could send somebody to go drive by, but that's all you're going to get. And that doesn't always tell you if it's vacant or not, just because you're driving by.
I've heard of people buying and finding out that the house is gone.
Oh, yes, it's gone. And this particular guy, when he bought this note, actually, and of course he Googled the address and it all looked good and everything. It was like, okay, piece of property. But when he actually got all the paperwork and he sent somebody out there because he was ready to start doing his door knocking, it was the property next door, and it was 10 times nicer than what he thought he was buying. So he really scored on that one, but that's not always the case. Usually it's the opposite. It's, and in fact, I have a story of, I don't know if I listed it here or not, but I have a story of one that I still made money on it, but it was still not what I expected. Unsecured notes, maybe there's a mobile home sitting on the dirt. The mobile home cannot be listed as personal property. It has to be attached to the land. And I don't mean necessarily physically, but it has to be recognized by the documentation that it is attached to the dirt. Otherwise, you're buying a piece of dirt. You're not buying. It's still secure by the dirt, but it's not secured by that, 2017 double wide mobile home. So you have to watch out for that. BK lien strip. So this is particularly important if you're looking at second liens, and that is the bankruptcy can strip the loan. So pacer.gov is the only place I know of where you can go and look at bankruptcy information. There is a fee for it. For each one you look at it, and it's not a subscription. And but it's definitely worth it to see, especially if you have any if you think there might be a bankruptcy involved in some way, you can go and look and see what the status is. Usury interest rates. Somebody's charging 14% or something in the state of Texas. I mean, you just kind of watch yourself, talk to your attorney, talk to the title company, and see if that's a legitimate interest rate.
Each state's different, right?
Each state's different. Yeah. I think it's I was talking about this in our mastermind group on Wednesday. And we were talking about usury rates, and I think Florida, and I could be wrong, but anyway, like Florida, I think is like 18%, whereas Texas is 10%. So, I mean, it's different all across the country.
Is 10 acceptable or more than 10?
10 is the usury rate for the state of Texas.
Okay, so you can't do 10.
No, you can do 10. You're not supposed to do 11.5 or 12.
Okay.
Now I see it done all the time, but I always talk to my attorney before I buy something like that, because I've never had anybody tell me that they've had any problems, because I know people that lend. Now seconds are a little different, and I know people that lend on seconds and they're charging 12 and 13%. And I buy those notes. I'll buy them all day long. Statute of limitations. That's a tough one, because it's if you have to look to see on that particular state, what are the statute of limitations of when you can file foreclosure? When can you go after the borrower for the note? And again, when you go back to, with all the problems we had in the mid 2000s with people staying in their houses, and then they hadn't made a payment in 6 or 7 years. Well, if the statute of limitations, for example, was 5 years, and you're buying a note that nobody's made a payment in 7 years, you're 2 years past the statute of limitations. Now, that doesn't mean you can't file foreclosure. You can, but there's a couple of things. One, you're hoping that the attorney who's representing the borrower is probably not a real estate specialist. They just, they're just a general practitioner, and they don't even think about statute of limitations. But then again, the judge could bring it up. And if they do that, you're just dead in the water. I did not see that happen. There were a few cases I knew of that there were some problems, but they were able to work something out with the borrower. But all you have to do is, if you buy the note, it is past the statute of limitations in that state. If you can just get the borrower to make one payment, then the statute of limitations starts over again.
Goes away. Yeah.
So you just, that if you can do that, then you're good.
So so let's say they missed a payment for a year, they filed bankruptcy, and now it's 3 years later, let's say 4 years later, before they complete bankruptcy, you can't, that 5-year statute of limitations doesn't apply, right? Because they filed bankruptcy.
Right. That just kind of puts a hold on it for the time being.
Okay. So that you can't count the bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's why so many of those people do file bankruptcy, so they can just put a hold on everything until it's all taken care of. So deferred balance on a senior lien. And what I'm referring to here is, if you're looking at a second, you've got a first lien and you got a second lien. Well, there may be some kind of deferred balance on the senior lien. So you want to make sure you understand what is going on with the senior lien before you look at that second. Buying a note or
When
a
you,
contract. Mhm.
Robin, when you say deferred balance, are you talking about missed payments?
Yeah. They've got a balance owed still sitting in their account.
Yeah.
So if like on a first lien, let's say they made payments, but then they skipped several months and then they made some partial payments. Well, there's going to be a deferred balance for late payment fees, maybe escrow. I mean, deferred balance can be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Watch out for, and I don't know why I said buying a note, but a contract for deed. And of course, in Texas, it's not allowed, but there are other types of for sale by owner contracts that you can buy that really are a contract for deeds, but you have to be very careful that the paperwork is written properly in the state of Texas, since it's technically not legal. Now, in other states, it is contracts for deed or land contracts, contract for deed. They're sold all the time. So, it just depends. Again, it depends on what state you're looking at. But don't think, you just want to be careful. Don't think you're buying a first lien and then you find out it's a contract for deed, because those are two different things. People
are still writing contracts for deed. I think Ruth Ann had one as a customer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they do it. But what I found is, because Ruth Ann, I had sent somebody to her for that. It was really a contract for deed, I think, at the end of the day. But a lot of the investors, they don't realize that they can't do that.
Yeah, those people that don't join groups like this and keep up with the laws and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh gosh, my screen has changed. Hold on a second, guys. I don't know why.
It's kind of like stop signs. It's only illegal to run it if you get caught.
That's true. That's true.
Right. Writing contracts for deed or doing buying, selling houses on lease to own, lease purchase, people are still doing that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But they're doing it, maybe some out of ignorance of not knowing, but some are just crooked, but it's lack of education in many cases. They don't understand what the laws are.
Exactly.
From what I understand on contracts for deed, the deed doesn't transfer at the closing. It stays with the seller until it's paid off. And where if you have a warranty deed, then the deed does transfer. And then, of course, you have those weird things that are, what do you call them? Quick claim deeds, which I don't think any of us really want to mess with, because anybody can claim they own something and not own it and cause all kinds of problems for you.
Well, what I tell people is a contract for deed I've had a couple of contract for deeds and still have one right now, and the borrower is still paying. But it's kind of like buying a car. You don't get the title until it's paid off. That's the simplest way to look at it.
Yep.
Okay, so another watch out for is when a first might not be a first. You think you're buying a first lien, it might be a second lien. You just want to make sure that it clearly is a first lien. Lack of pay history from the origination. So this can kind of fall in the category of unscrupulous note sellers, broker jokers as well. When you buy a note and you want, one of the things you want to look at is the pay history. You may not always get all the pay history. But you want to be careful when somebody does send you the pay history and that it is legitimate, because so many mom and pops their pay history might be, maybe they've done an Excel spreadsheet, but that's not really giving you the correct pay history, because anybody can put an Excel spreadsheet together.
Yep.
So anyway, you just want to double check the pay history and try to validate the numbers and the dates. If it's mom and pop, well, can you get copies of canceled checks? And, let's say the notes, somebody's been paying for 8 years. Well, I'm not going to ask for 8 years worth, but I do want to see the last couple of years. Okay. Just to validate that the borrower is paying, that sort of thing. So, yeah. Okay. Kind of gone over a little bit of this already, but type of notes to buy, performing or non-performing. I think that's kind of self-explanatory. I will say that you do want to be careful. So I get a lot of notes from hedge funds and a couple of servicers. And anyway, they'll send, it may be a list of 10 notes. There may be 200 notes on there. And I'll go through and pick out what I want if I'm interested. And they'll refer to it as a performing note. And I go back and I look and I get the pay history. I'm like, this isn't performing. Somebody who's been skipping every other month or makes 3 months in a row and then skips 1 month, that's not performing to me. Someone who's performing is someone who makes their payment. I don't care if they're 10 days late, but if they're making a payment every month, that's what I care about. That, to me, that's performing. Non-performing, obviously, they're not making payments. You can buy first or seconds. I would not ever buy a third or fourth. They're out there, but I wouldn't go that far, because you have to think about, again, what worst case scenario, you're going to end up with the house. I'm going to have to foreclose to get the house because I'm not getting paid. Well, what they can be easily, let's say you're looking at a third lien. They could easily be making their first and second loans, but they're not paying you on the third. So you file foreclosure, and it kind of puts you in what's called first position, so to speak. But you still have to deal with the first and the second. You either will have to make those if the borrower goes dark, make those payments, or you will have to pay off those loans. So I don't know. I just don't like to go that far out. First and second is as far as I go. Local or out of state, I've talked about that already a little bit. It's you have more options if you look out of your state or it's definitely out of your backyard. I mean, if you're only interested in Texas, go for it. I mean, Texas is a big state, but I would not limit myself to just Texas, because you may not buy a note for 3 years. Private or institutional. That's institutional being anything other than mom and pop. A private investor that just has a few notes. You can buy, sometimes you can buy singles. Sometimes you can buy, more likely you can definitely, if you're looking at a pool of notes, like from a hedge fund or a bigger group, you'll get a better discount if you want to buy 5, 10, 15 notes versus 1 note or 2 notes. Yeah, well, which is what I said below, buy multiple smaller notes. And that's the other thing. If you only have X amount of dollars to spend, well, okay, and this is your first go around, just buy a couple of smaller notes. Be willing to learn to lose money if that's what it takes for you to learn the business. Because if you really want to do this and learn the business, okay, I can lose $15,000. I don't want to, but you have to be willing to do it. And that, I don't think that's any different than, well, in my opinion, it's no different than the stock market. It's up and down like a roller coaster all the time. So you're going to put some money in the stock market, be willing to lose it, because it could happen.
Robin? On your previous slides, you said when a first is not a first. Are you referring to when you think you're buying a first, but somewhere they refinanced and the lender wasn't careful and a second slipped in there and became the first and they realize it.
Yes, that is one way. And it can also be that somebody who's like somebody who's selling you the note thinks they have a first, but they don't. So just verify that it is a first lien. I mean, it may be somebody who's, they're not doing something on purpose. They just don't understand, mom and pop, you're buying a note. They don't realize that there was another lien on top of the property. A perfect example would be someone who has a subject to. So there's still a first lien that investor is having to pay, but he wants to sell you his lien that he sold to the new homeowner. Well, that's really not that's not first position. The first lien when the original lender is there in place. So you just want to be careful about check the records, check the court records, the deeds, and that sort of thing.
If they're doing the closing properly, the promissory note at that point should have that first lien addressed in it.
Well, that's the key if they're doing it the right way.
That's what I said.
And it's okay. So I mean, I buy notes that haven't gone through the title company. It's just an attorney and stuff. That's okay but there's a bigger discount involved. And so, yeah, you just want to check that paperwork. It's very important just to read all the documentation.
It's all about risk versus reward.
Exactly.
This entire business is that way.
So here's a list that I put together. And this is for me. I think a lot of my note cohorts would agree with this. The order of what I think is the most desirable type of notes. Now, I will say that, for instance, I know a guy down in the Austin area, and he has a lot of raw land, even though it's not the top of the list and it's not improved. It's a lot of raw land. He likes the raw land. But this is kind of a typical list that I like to look at. The single family residential owner occupied. So that's my next door neighbor, and he's the borrower, he lives there, he's the one making payments. I do like the single family residential non-owner occupied, because those are typically the investor who maybe has a handful of rentals. He's turned into owner finance deals, and he's tired of dealing with all of it. He just wants to cash out. He wants to retire, whatever. I like those because usually those investors, they usually have fairly decent records, and they'll usually offer a better discount because they do want out and they're tired of dealing with the real estate. So, anyway, this is kind of the list. And when you go down here to commercial, the reason non-industrial comes up, and what I'm referring to is I don't have any commercial. I would like to. I'm always looking for some small stuff. But one of the things I definitely stay away from, whether it's a note or whether I'm buying the real estate, is anything that has like an old gas station. Unless they can provide an environmental, and I think it's a phase 2, not phase 1, but a phase 2 environmental report that shows that they have taken those tanks out of the ground and they have cleaned it up. And not that I'm so concerned about what's going to happen while I have it, but if you try to resell it, you're going to end up with somebody who's going to come in and say, well, I'm not touching that because you don't have, you're going to have to do an environmental, and an environmental report can run you $4, $5, $6, $10,000 or more, depending on what has to be done. So, and that also applies not just to gasoline tanks, but dry cleaners. They use a lot of chemicals and stuff like that. So anything kind of in that industrial area is one that you want to be kind of careful about, but non-commercial, non-industrial, you know, hey, those are good ones to find and hang on to. And if you don't want them, call me. I'll look at it.
There's some
Resort
gurus
vacation
out there that teach the whole, they have a whole strategy on buying old gas stations. That's their whole strategy.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you want, I mean, I don't want to spend that kind of money trying to clean the place up myself.
Yep.
Resort vacation properties, that's really just referring to maybe somebody has a second home or something like that. Those can be some good deals. Subdivided but unimproved lots. So in other words, there's maybe the utilities aren't to the lot yet. Maybe it's a subdivision. Somebody's put in, say, the road, but they haven't put anything else in. So that's kind of at the bottom of the list. And then, of course, obviously just plain old raw land. But I know people that buy a lot of raw land. So it's just not my thing. Okay, so here comes the criteria for discounting a note. And it's funny because when you're on the note side, you look at these things. If I'm the note seller, these things don't mean anything to me because they don't want you to discount their notes. Well, here's the things that we look at. The borrower, okay. If you can, you get information on if there was a closing, you know, through a title company, then you would get all the information. You get the HUD 1, you get, you know, a lot of times the application, credit report, whatever. Well, I look at if I can get a borrower's credit report, I'm fine with the credit report. I don't care if they haven't made their, you know, some medical bills. I don't care if they haven't paid that or not. What I care about are they making payments for the rental property in the past or their home. They don't have any bankruptcy or any foreclosures. If they do, that they're extremely old. So let's say that maybe they had a foreclosure in 2012. Well, you know what? A lot of people had foreclosures in 2012, and that was just a very hard time. And that wouldn't bother me. But what I do also want to see is I want to see that whatever their home is, I want to see they're making those payments. If they have a cell phone, I want to see they're making their cell phone payments. And if they have car payments, I want to see they're making their car payments. If they have some dings on Old Navy, you know, credit card or, you know, Macy's, I don't care if they're not paying those or not. They may be paying a little bit, that, you know, that doesn't bother me at all because that's just an extra that they're wasting their money on. It's not a necessity. The 3 necessities are what I'm concerned about when I'm looking at the borrower. Of course, I want to make sure the borrower I do want to make sure he has a job. He's going to be able to continue to make the payments. You know, and I'm funny because I will Google the borrowers, you know, as much information as I have and see what I can find. You know, if I see on Facebook, they're doing some weird stuff or something, then I kind of like, I don't know. Let me see. Are they truly going to be a good borrower? Are they going to go dark on me in 6 months? So I'm just kind of nosy that way. Terms of the note. Well, what are the terms? Is this going to be paid off in 5 years? Is it a 10-year note? Is there a balloon on the end? I'm really not interested in the note if it's got a balloon on the end. If it's a small balloon, I would consider it. But a balloon that person's got to pay it off or go get refinancing. And most of the time, most people do not refinance because they don't qualify. Or they're just too lazy and they just don't go do it. Collateral. Once again, what does the house look like? Where is it? Because I do not want to take that house back if I don't have to. But if I do, is it something I'm willing to own? And can I do something with it? Is there a realtor close by that will sell it for me? a management company if I have to turn it into a rental? Can I find contractors to go in and fix the roof? Can I find somebody to even go take care of the yard? You'd be surprised if you're looking in very rural areas. Nobody wants to go out that far. Nobody wants to drive 45 miles to go take care of a yard and cut down some bushes and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely look at the collateral. Pay history, again, how consistent has the borrower been on making their paying their history? Is there any equity in the house? I don't like to buy something that there's no equity. And once again, it's the same thing. If I have to take, if I have to take this house back, I could easily be upside down if there's no equity in it, especially with the market the way it is. It comes, it's up and down and up and down. So I want to see some equity in it. And then, of course, the paperwork. Was the note written on a yellow piece of paper, a notepad, or did they go through a title company? Was there an RMLO included? Just, double check those things. And there's nothing that says that it has to be perfect, but those are the items that you can tell your note seller, well, look, I'm having to discount this because you didn't have an RMLO, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And I have to take that into consideration because this borrower may not continue to pay this time next year. I don't know. I'm the one taking the risk.
Hey, Robin, Pam asked the question, are notes closed at a title company?
They can be, but they don't have to be. We don't always do it. And one of the things that it's not critical, to me, it's not critical, is there a lender's policy? If there's a lender's policy on the note, you can close at a title company so you can get that lender's policy. And the lender's policies are not that expensive, but for me, it's not a deal breaker because it could have been a deal that was handled with an attorney, and that's fine. Okay, part of your due diligence. This is a lot like just buying a house for an investment. If you want to try to check some values out, there's, I think everybody knows there's a lot of ways to do that. But remember that on a note, it's not like you can call a realtor and go look at the house. You can't see the inside of the house. You're buying what's on paper. You're buying what you can see on Google or what you can drive by and look at. So just keep that in mind that you're not going to be able to go inside and see what kind of condition it is. But I think like real estate, if they're taking care of the outside, they're probably taking care of the inside.
Propelio would be a good one to add to your estimations there.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. If you have memberships to different, there's a lot of different sources out there for looking up estimated values. Those are just the common ones. One of the things that I do look at, and Trulia was good about this. I don't know if they're still doing this or not, but there's several other companies. When I'm looking at value, I also look at the crime statistics, because if it's in an area I'm not familiar with, I don't want to find something that's riddled with a lot of crime. Now, and I don't have it on here, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but there were a couple of companies that you could look online and they give you crime reports. And at first you might see something that was really kind of scary. Oh my gosh, the crime number is, an 8, and I'd rather it be a 2 or a 3 or something. Well, if that house is near a commercial district, it's going to include all of the crime in that commercial district. So it kind of, what am I trying to say? It changes the crime rate, the number, the rating that they have, because it's really not crime in that neighborhood on those houses. It's just that they back up, let's say, to a big shopping center where they have theft and they have, you know, vandalism and that stuff like that. So you kind of have to take that into consideration. But I definitely do look to see what kind of the crime statistics are.
You know, I wonder if that's what
mhm.
just happened to me, Robin. I have a new rental over by the hospital, and
Mhm.
USAA, I'm sorry, not USAA. I think it was NREG, National Real Estate Insurance Group. They denied me insurance coverage on this house because they said it was a high crime rate. Well, the neighborhood is not. The neighborhood is very quiet. I've talked to the neighbors. There's never any problems over there in that neighborhood. And it just doesn't make any sense to me why they would deny issuing a policy on this house in the neighborhood that they're in. But maybe it was because of the commercial aspect.
I would bet so. And I would do one or two things. One, I would ask the insurance company to tell, you know, if you think the crime is a problem, can you give me the report that you used so I can see what the source is? And then I would just go to the police department and I would ask them, do they have any other statistics or any other information to show that the residential area is not an issue? It's just that commercial district. But that's, and I think people run into that a lot and don't realize that the commercial is affecting the crime rating.
I'd never seen that before, but that's something, that's a different angle there. I'll have to check that out.
Mm-hmm. Equity in the property, loan to value, that's, you know, actually probably investment to value also. So when you're looking at the note, look to see what the loan to value is. You set your own standard. Are you willing to buy something at an 80% loan to value, or are you limiting yourself to 60%? And then you look at the loan value, but also consider your investment to value, which investment to value should be less than the loan to value, because if there's a $50,000 loan on the house and the house is worth 100, that's a 50-50 loan to value. But I don't want to pay 50. I'm not going to pay for the full price of that loan because I'm going to wait and get the money over a period of time. You're the note seller and you're going to get the whole thing now. Why should I be the one to take the risk? So they should discount it. If they don't, then I'll walk away. But then your investment to value will be less. So maybe your investment to value is 40% instead of 50% like the loan to value is. Of course, one way to get information on the title is I use Pro Title. It's a national company. Because I do so much stuff out of state or in other counties. If it's local, then I call up Martin's office and have them do it. But anywhere else, I use Pro Title. It's very reasonably priced, and they'll give you a full title report. They have other information too that they provide. I think about once a year they'll send out an email with some new things that they're doing. So I think it's a really good company, and they're real quick. That's another nice thing. I can order it today and I'll have it by tomorrow. So it doesn't take long at all. Title. Is the property still owned by the person that signed the notes? And again, that's just, is this, is that person an investor? Has he sold it once? Has he sold it to somebody else? You just want to make sure who signed the note, is that person still alive? That happens sometimes. So it just some things, extra things to look at. Bankruptcy. Again, pacer.gov. And y'all just get on there and look at that. That's, if you've never looked at that before, you can get a lot of information. Avoid liens that have checked to make sure they haven't been stripped, particularly on seconds. Is this note, the property itself, going to be a problem or an opportunity? Is there going to be a a lot of work that has to be done before you can do anything with it. You know, always know what is your exit strategy. Are you wanting to get this note because you want the cash flow every month? Well, is the borrower paying consistently? Or is it something that you want to buy because you really want the real estate, because you want to turn it into a rental? You know, just know what your exit strategy is. So then you know whether it's going to be a problem or an opportunity to make some money off of it. Bankruptcy, you just, again, I can't say enough about just checking that, because you could buy a note and they have just filed bankruptcy. And so now there's a hold and you can't do anything until the bankruptcy is finalized.
Robin, when you're considering buying notes, you know, when you're considering buying a house, you always want to have multiple exit strategies. Is having multiple exit strategies, is that critical in note buying?
I think it is, because I'll give you an example of one that I bought. This was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And at the time I bought this note, you Google the house. I may have had somebody drive by. I don't remember for sure, but a nice little house. The note seller, which was a hedge fund, they had done a little bit of work. They had made contact with the borrower and assumed the borrower was still living in the house, an older gentleman. And I thought, well, good. At that time, there was what was called hardest hit funds. And they were all across the country, depending on what state you're in. I don't know if Texas had any or not, because we just didn't have a foreclosure problem. And hardest hit fund was, if I can get the borrower to do this and this, then the hardest hit fund money will they'll catch up his payments for him, which I get, or they'll pay off the note. I mean, there were a lot of different ways to work around that. So I bought this note and I did a little work, had everything looked fine until I finally reached the borrower. Well, come to find out, he had moved out and was living with his daughter. He was still working. He was an older gentleman and he was not computer savvy. And my first reason to buy the note was I was going to get him reperforming. We were going to go through the hardest hit fund. Okay, well, I had to scratch that idea. Another one was, okay, well, let's just get him paying again, or I'll get him to sign, if there's no liens or not any big hits on the title, I'll just get him to sign a deed in lieu. And then we don't have to go through foreclosure. That saves me time and saves me money. Well, poor man, I talked to him several times. He didn't have a clue how to even fax anything. Certainly didn't have email. And it got to be after about 9 months of trying to deal with him, I had to put stuff hard copy in the mail, sent it to him, and I probably spent too much time on it. I should have just gone ahead and started foreclosure and be done with it. But I always want to try to help that homeowner if I can stay in the house. So anyway, at the end of the day, I foreclosed on him. We'll come to find out he had a small roof leak, which he never took care of. You couldn't tell by looking at the house. And of course, you can't get in the house because you just own the note when you first purchase it. And you still can't get into it until you have gone through foreclosure and you actually have the deed in your hand. So by the time that happens, several years have gone by, and I had to put a whole new roof on this house. It's like not what I expected.
Plus do the repairs inside the house.
No, I didn't do any repairs in the house, just the roof. Okay. I didn't do the repairs in the house because I wasn't going to keep the house. I ended up turning around and selling it to an investor who he did the repairs in the house and he turned it into a rental, and I moved on. I got out. It was kind of one of those, and I've had several similar deals. I didn't have to do a lot of work, but if it's a house I don't have to do anything to, and I have an investor who wants to buy it as a rental, I'll carry the paper. And, but that one was just one that was just a thorn in my side. I was just ready to be done with it. I wanted that Fort Wayne, Indiana name off of my desk. But, yeah, so.
Plus it's cold
but-
up there.
Well, I'm not going up there. I never went up there. It's way too cold for me. I was afraid I'd fly up there and then I'd get stuck and I couldn't get out of the snow. So I was not going to go.
I don't blame you.
So physical due diligence, physical inspection, yes or no. You can, you're looking at a note, you're not buying the real estate. So there's so much you can do. Sometimes some hedge funds, I don't have this as much as they used to. They would have somebody go out and do an inspection of the house and you might get some pictures, but very seldom do I ever see that anymore. Is it vacant? Is it not vacant? You don't want it to be vacant, but then again, I really don't want a bunch of what are they called? People live in the house that aren't supposed to be. I'm drawing a blank. Vagrants. Thank you. Yes.
Squatters.
Yes.
Squatters.
Squatters. Thank you. That's what a word I was thinking of. Yeah. You don't, but you never know. But I mean, that's something you can't tell just because somebody's living there. You just don't know.
There's a few other
BPO.
names for them too.
Yeah. Yeah, there are. A BPO, we used to see those all the time. And I've never considered those to be reliable. No offense to the realtors out there, but if you did get a BPO, and a lot of these big companies would have a BPO done, the first thing you always look at, or I did, was look and see how far the realtor that did the BPO, how far away they live. If they drove 40 or 50 miles to go do a drive-by, because they're not going to get to go inside this house, their information is not reliable to me. I need somebody who's local, who really knows what's going on in the market, who has good comps. So I never counted those BPOs as being reliable. I think you just have to.
That's been my experience too, with when there's a BPO done for a short sale and stuff that just so out of whack.
Yeah, you can call up a local realtor and usually get more information. And what I always do is if I do that, I always tell them, I'm happy to pay them, but they usually don't take any money. Just they want to make sure that if I do sell it, that I'll list it with them, which I will. I'm happy to do that because then I've already got a relationship built with somebody, and that's far better than just pulling a name out of the phone book. Property taxes. Don't forget to check the property taxes. How much is owed? What kind of penalties? You're going to have to pay that right off the bat. Otherwise, your property may be sold, because if you have the note, then the property can be sold at a tax lien sale, and then now you've got to buy those back. So check property taxes. HOA dues, same thing. If I see something that's in an HOA, I typically just avoid it. They got so many issues. Those HOAs are a bunch of people sitting around that don't have anything better to do, and they're constantly complaining. I just don't want to deal with them. Code enforcement, that can be a good or a bad thing. You can get a lot of information from code enforcement if there are some some issues
Robin?
with that. Mm-hmm.
On the property tax sales, if it gets sold at auction, it pretty much wipes out all the lien holders and such. Isn't that right?
No,
No.
not on. No.
Okay.
You can buy the borrower, or you can negotiate with whoever bought the property taxes. You could negotiate with them to buy that lien.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Thanks.
So I have in fact, I still have a deal right now in Ohio, actually, that bought the note, got it really, really cheap. The borrower, there were about 3 years of tax liens that had been sold. There's one company in the state of Ohio that buys all tax liens in the state of Ohio. I don't know how they're able to do that, but anyway, what we ended up doing, we bought the first lien, so the tax lien is still out there, and we negotiated with the borrower and the tax lien company for the borrower to start making payments on those tax liens. I wasn't going to pay it. And so that's what they did. The borrower made the payments on those tax liens and got that paid off. So anyway, code enforcement, like I said, could be good or bad. You can get some information, but you got to stay on top of it, because some of those code enforcement agents are really picky. And, you know, if they say 30 days, they don't give you 31 days to get out there and mow that yard. They give you 30 days. And they don't care if you're the lender, the borrower, they don't care who you are. So just check and see. And a lot of times you're just going to have to call and ask them if you can't find anything online. And one other thing that actually I probably should have included in this is water bill. Water bill can be a big issue because water bills stay with the property. They don't go with the borrower. And if someone hadn't paid their water bill, you know, I mean, especially right now, I mean, some people water bill is really high. And if they haven't paid in 3 or 4 months, sometimes the city doesn't shut the water off for months. They just keep billing them. So check, you know, and if you end up with a note, end up taking over the property, you're going to be stuck with those water bills too.
That's interesting. I never heard of that. I didn't realize the water stayed with the house and not with the owner or renter.
Yep. Electric is with the borrower, the tenant. Gas would be, but water stays with the property.
Never knew that.
Judicial or non-judicial? I'm sorry?
I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've experienced that because when we knew there was a water bill, and you call up the city and you ask them, well, they want to verify who you are. Well, I'm the lender. Well, I can't give you that information. So you wait a day or two, you call back and you say, well, I know that there's an outstanding water bill on this property and we want to pay it off. We're the lender. We've taken over this property. We want to pay it off. How much is it? And they'll tell you then. It's just, you know, kind of silly, but you have to learn those things. Judicial or non-judicial, I think everybody probably knows what that is. If it's in a state that's judicial, you have to go through the court system. You have to sue the borrower to go through foreclosure. If it's non-judicial, there's a trustee that is set up to be kind of the intermediary. You still have to go through the courts in terms of filing all the paperwork and all that sort of thing. And you still have to have an attorney, but it's a lot faster. And in Texas, you can do judicial or non-judicial. So, it's, you know, and most people do non-judicial because it's cheaper. And if you do find a note and let's say the borrower ends up not making payments, or maybe they haven't made payments in a while, and you go ahead and buy the note, you don't mind taking over the house, I would definitely look at doing a deed in lieu instead of going through any of the other legal aspects, like hiring a trustee, you know, having to get an attorney with a trustee and have to all the other stuff. Because if you've run an O&E report or a title report, you can see there's really not any other liens on that property. You don't need to go through foreclosure. If you can get the borrower, you get the title work, you still want the paperwork put together by an attorney so everything's kosher, but there's no sense in wasting the time and money, the extra money, to go through foreclosure, because if there's no liens that you're trying to wipe out, why do it? So I think it's and for the borrower's benefit, they don't have a foreclosure on their record. Now, you don't ever tell the borrower that we will let you do a deed in lieu and use that against them to sign a deed in lieu, because you know it won't go on their record, because they'll get you. An attorney will find you and get you for that. That's like, you know, bribing them. You just want to tell them what the facts are, and the facts are a foreclosure goes on your credit report, a deed in lieu does not. So, what else? Okay. So here I'm just going to show you a couple of deals that I did, and they may not be as lucrative as what you might want, but for me, this worked out fine. They were clean, they were simple, and I didn't have to do a whole bunch of work. This is one I bought. This is the picture I got when I bought the note. I know that it looks a lot better now, but Toledo, Ohio is a typical single family house. So what we did was 2013, I paid $18,000 for the note. And I didn't put on here what the unpaid balance was. I think the unpaid balance on the note was 40 some odd $1,000. So if the borrowers had stayed, and were paying, then I would have gotten that 40 some odd $1,000, but that wasn't the situation. We filed foreclosure June 2014. We ended up renting it because I didn't want it vacant, rented it through 2017. And part of the reason that on this one I rented is because at that time, it was taken 3 and 4 years anyway for foreclosure. So it was a clean little house inside, didn't need a whole lot of work done. So yeah, it was a nice little deal. So over the period from the time I rented it through the time that I sold it, which was 3 years, roughly 3 years, a little less than 3 years, pulled in a little over $18,000 in rent. And then I sold it to an investor in November 2017 for $49,000. So when you add in the expenses I had, the $20,000 in expenses, that was the little bit of rehab I had to do. I had to pay some property taxes over the 3 years that I had it. Before I rented it, I had utilities because I want to keep utilities going. And that also include all my foreclosure cost. So, I didn't think that was too bad. Then you add in the $18,000 I paid for the note. My total expenses were $38,000. After I sold the note for $49,000, and when I sell these things, I have the deed now. When I have an investor who's interested, I always tell them I want to net this amount of money. I'm not paying for a survey. I'm not paying for any title insurance. I'll pay for my filing fee of the deed. I'll pay for any prorated taxes, which of course you never pay other taxes anyway. But I'm not paying for all these other costs that the title company is going to charge you for. And so I want to net $49,000. So that's what I did. And so after that, my profit was almost $30,000. So that was a good deal for me. I didn't have to do a whole lot of work. I mean, really, the rent checks came in regularly. In fact, on this case, the renter stayed, and the new guy that bought it was happy to have the renters. So that was really an incentive. And then let's see. Oh, this one was a real interesting one. I still have this note. This is Port St. Lucia, Florida. Single family residence. So it's a great area. So this is a second lien. I bought this in 2007. The borrower's unpaid balance, this was just principal. When you say unpaid balance, that's just the principal, $48,750. And what we purchased was the legal balance, which was almost $76,000. Legal balance, you may not see that because that includes attorney's fees, late fees, whatever, the total amount that you can sue for. Well, so we started foreclosure. And the second lien, we purchased it in 2013. So we started foreclosure as soon as we could start foreclosure. Part of that time between July 2013 and March 2014, we had, I was trying to negotiate with the borrower, trying to make contact with the borrower. You know, hey, you want to start making your payments again? You know, I want you to stay in the house. Well, they wouldn't respond. Letters, nothing would get their attention, which is not uncommon. Well, one of the things I always look for, whether it's a first lien or a second lien, is I want to see if I can figure out, is there emotional equity tied to this property? That being, and again, when I'm snooping around on people, Facebook, have they got kids? It means they got kids in school, you know, all that kind of stuff. This house, I Googled it, and I was so lucky because when they took the picture of the Google picture, there were painters outside painting the house, and it was recent. So I'm like, oh my gosh, they're spending money having this house painted. Then I also found, just through Google, and of course, Florida is more open up about information than Texas is. I found a permit that they had requested within the past year to have concrete poured, a new patio in the back. Oh, there's more emotional equity. And then I found something on Facebook that they just had their third baby. Well, these people aren't going anywhere. So I'm like, man, I'm pushing this hard. So I called up our attorney in Florida and I said, start foreclosure. I'm not wasting any more time with these guys. They hired just a general attorney. My attorney was real estate specific, did a lot of foreclosures. They hired an attorney, and the attorney, we went back and forth for several months. And actually, I think, yeah, it took a while because not only the foreclosure process in Florida was still several years, but also the fact of dealing with their attorney. He argued that this lien is not valid. It's gone. Well, what do you mean it's gone? Well, because my borrower got a 1099 from the lender. And it said, you know, that the debt is gone. I said, well, wait a minute, send me a copy of that. So we got a copy, and I said, well, first off, at that time, now 1099s have been changed since then. There was a box on there for them to check that the debt was released. They didn't check any boxes. And then second, I said, well, okay, if that's the case, because if that was the case, I would go back to the person I bought my note from and said, hey, you didn't have a note here to sell. You're going to have to pay me back. We'd have to work something out. Well, I said, give me a release. Send me a copy. It was Bank of America. Send me a copy of the release that was filed with the county from Bank of America. And then you're out of it, and we're sorry we wasted your time and blah, blah, blah. Well, they could never produce that. And so at the end of the day, it finally came down to where they acknowledged that, you know, they owed the money. And so to this day, I'm still getting payments. What we ended up agreeing, we did a stipulation agreement. And basically that says and you can word it any way you want. Stipulation agreement says, okay, we're going to start accepting payments again, but you're going to have to do this, this, and this. One of the things that I required on this particular case was I want skin in the game. I want $5,000 up front because I want their pocketbooks to hurt more since they haven't been making payments. But in a trade-off, I said, okay, you legally owe about $76,000. If we pursue this, I could possibly get that. Now, of course, the likelihood is not there because for a lot of different reasons. But so I said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do is you start making payments again. Here's how much your payments are going to be. And you're going to send me $5,000, and we're not signing this until I get the $5,000. We'll agree to reduce your unpaid balance from $48,750 to $37,000. So that's what we did. So while $37,000 plus 5 is not far from that 48, it's a lot less than that 76 that they owed. And they started making payments again, and they're making payments just like clockwork. In fact, the last couple of years, they've bumped the payments up $100 or $200. So it's, you know, it's worked out. And our total cost in this, with our legal fees, was $14,315. We had to pay some other things in there, so it wasn't just foreclosure. So through September this year, we received in his payments, and this is just, I don't remember if that's principal. No, that's principal and interest. That's almost $36,000. So his unpaid balance, if he paid it off today, paid it off today, is little over 17,000. And so if he paid it off now or in September, we would make off the bottom of the day, not including, including the payments received. That was on top of that, 38,641. So we've been getting these payments for all these years. Plus that, I mean, it's like, this is a win-win situation. And, you know, seconds are, and on this particular one, I didn't put it in here. I don't know why I missed it. Total cost, that was part of the note, the purchase of the note. That's what it was. The foreclosure cost and I think the purchase of this note was like $8,000, something like that. Anyway, let's see what else. I just threw in a couple of other things that I'm happy to send you all more information, but some of the documents you need when you're going to buy a note, obviously the assignment, transferring the deed of trust or the mortgage to you. There's also what's called an allonge, a RESPA letter. If the note is serviced, if you're changing servicers, then a respite letter needs to go out from one servicer saying goodbye and another servicer saying hello. That just tells the borrower that you have you need to start sending your payments somewhere else. The note's been sold. Other information required. This is just stuff that you would need. I mean, there's a whole checklist of a lot of information, and you can it can go on and on if you want it to. Pay history, last payment, collateral file. One of the things that I would strongly suggest is if you're buying a note from somebody, you have in your agreement how many days it is before somebody will send you the hard copies. You always, you know, it can't just, don't leave it open-ended. I guess I thought I had that in there. Typically they'll say 30 days. If I sell a partial on a note, I sell a note to somebody, which I don't do very often, I have everything really ready to go. I'll give them 14 days and I'll send it out to them. But yeah, definitely make sure that they don't sit on that, because you've already paid them for the note. You need to get you can't really do a whole lot if you don't have those hard copies. You need to have the original note. It's been recorded, it's stamped, recorded, and if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can get an affidavit, but it does take a little bit more work and time to get all that, especially if you have to find the note seller. I mean, the borrower. And the last thing was the servicing. I strongly recommend you don't self-serve. I do self-serve on a couple of notes. They're just with my investors, but you make sure you've got some software or something you are keeping up with. You know, even with my investors, when I get a check, I make a copy of the check. I make a copy of the envelope with the stamp, date received, and I record it. And I have note software that I recorded in there, so I keep my balance going and all that sort of thing. But you're really, especially if you're a novice at it, definitely encourage you to board your note with a licensed servicer. If you're dealing in, I know that August REI is one of our sponsors and they handle Texas. So you want to call Amy up and get everything set up with them. If it's out of state, make sure you check and see what some of the laws are about being a note holder and servicing yourself. these states are changing things all the time, and you may never get caught, but if they don't allow it, so like Washington, state of Washington, you're supposed to have a license, and it's not cheap to get a license. I mean, it really doesn't make much sense unless you have a whole lot of notes in that state. So you want to check on that and see. But anyway, that's I guess a summary of a lot of important points that I wanted to try to pass on to you all. There's tons more information, and it's one of those I guess businesses that, even though I've been in real estate a long time, there's still tons of new stuff, and I don't know it all. I mean, believe me, I learn something new all the time. Tricks, the licensing thing that can change. You just, it's like anything else. You just got to stay on top of it and ask questions and whatever. Keep getting education.
I would imagine that connecting with local REIA groups in other states where you're thinking about and buying notes at would probably be a good resource for you, wouldn't it?
Well, you would think so, but actually most of them don't have anything to do with the paper. They're flippers. The typical landlord who's got several properties, whether they're rentals or whether he has some notes, they don't, they've been at it a while. They don't attend those real estate meetings very much. Now, they are a good source if you're trying to find a contractor or something like that. Maybe once you take the house over, or even find somebody that you want boots on the ground, we call them, to drive by and give you a better idea about the neighborhood or something like that.
Yeah. Build your power team out
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
So any questions, if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I'll certainly get an answer for you or send you some information. I really encourage everybody, though, if you have any income that you're working for that's in the real estate business, just look at the IRA. I mean, put some money, do this or real estate, lend monies, do something with your IRA. Don't let it just sit there. It's just not doing anything for you, especially if you're under the age of 40. Wish I'd known all this when I was 35 or something like that. My gosh, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. I'd be a millionaire.
Hey, Robin, who do you
Yeah.
use as your custodian when you're doing some of these self-directed IRAs and 401s?
Well, the company I use is out of Florida, and they're called IRA Financial Group.
Okay.
His name's Adam Bergman. He's actually a tax attorney by trade, but there are a lot of companies you can go to. And as far as I know, the IRA companies, all of them offer their services for everything from a typical IRA, self-directed IRA, to a solo 401k to a Roth. I mean, they do them all. Some are a little bit more knowledgeable in certain areas, and what you want to do is, if you're trying to pick somebody, take a look at, and they'll all have some kind of fee schedule. Get their fee schedule and compare, because they will charge you some will charge you, like Quest. Quest is a company here in Texas that's very well known, and it has a very good reputation. They have some fairly new plans out where they'll charge you one annual fee, and that takes care of everything, because and they give you a discount if you have, like, say, 2 or 3 IRAs, like in the family, maybe you, your wife, maybe you've got one for your kid or something like that. But when you're doing deals and you're using IRA money, you're going to be charged every time they have to write a check. You don't get to write the checks unless you have a solo 401k that you're handling checkbook control. Every time they write a check to pay a contractor, to pay a utility bill, they're going to charge you a fee, and those can add up. So make sure you check their fee schedule.
That's one reason why I still use equity trust today is you pay one annual fee based on the value of your accounts, but you don't pay a fee for every check you write. So that's a big plus. There's no cost per transaction or anything. So I would like it for that reason. And they've recently, they added web bill pay so you can initiate a payment online several years ago, but now they've added a debit card to the account so you can buy materials and pay contractors and stuff via the credit card, that debit card. So much easier than it used to be. You don't have to write a check for everything. So we like it. I've been with Equity Trust for a long time. I've had my account since probably early 2000s with them. So,
Are they a local company, Tim, or
no, they're
national thing?
nationwide. They're out of Ohio.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm trying to get them
They're
to
well
come.
known.
Yeah, they're very well known. They're one of the original self-directed IRA companies started many years ago. But I'm working on trying to get them scheduled to come into the group again. It's been a while since they've been here.
Okay, well, perfect. I appreciate it. Yeah, that gives me two good options.
That's why I chose them. And they were referred by not only Tim, but several other investors.
Yeah, they're probably the biggest, if not pretty close, but they've been around a long time. So
yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Robin?
No, that's it.
Great
Robin,
stuff.
that was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you very
thank
much,
you.
Robin.
I appreciate the opportunity. Hope, like I say, don't hesitate to send me an email and whatever. And if you have any questions or you have a note or something you want to look at, I'll help you out with it.
Thank you.
Robin, if you would, please email me your presentation and I'll post it on the group site for the attendees.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, did you give them that checklist?
It's coming after the meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
So,
Gotcha. Okay.
As promised in the invitation, Robin has created a very nice due diligence checklist for note buying and creation. And I'm going to upload that to the calendar area of the group afterwards. So you'll be able to go download that for those that attended the meeting today. So, but thank you, Robin. That was great stuff. I got a bunch of notes here. I've been through a lot of note training over the years, but as you said early, don't try and spread yourself too thin and trying to learn too many different things and do too many things at once. And that was a big mistake for me. And I try to tell people that today, mentor students and anybody else, is don't bite off more than you can chew. You might be a jack of a lot of different trades, but you may not be a master of anything when you start doing, commercial and notes and rehab and owner finance and flipping. You get too many things going and you're not going to become the expert of any of them.
Right.
So pick what you're comfortable with and learn it and master it. And there's nothing wrong with adding other things later, but don't try and learn it all at once.
Yeah.
So,
No.
Okay. Well, thanks very
you.
much, Robin. I'm going to forego all of the other stuff here because I think we have pretty much everybody's seen it. I just want to remind everybody again about the Christmas event for December. Not having a location. I'm not sure where we are going to be meeting. If we're meeting for a Christmas party, we're looking at a restaurant as an alternative, but you'll see those notices come out on the calendar and the email. I don't know if you can see this or not. Can you see that?
Tim, are you thinking it'll be the 9th then? Because I may be at the NFR in Vegas on the 9th. So
I don't see any way around it, moving it to the 9th. So because I'm going to be gone and there's just things that's going to have to be done. And it's going to be hard to try and do that and get off an airplane on Friday evening and
Yeah.
come to the meeting on Saturday. It's just going to be hard. So, but anyhow, this is a brand new West DFW coffee cup. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Look what the back says. Life is good.
Good.
But anyhow, these, for those of you that may not know, we don't want to get into sales because of sales tax issues and tracking and stuff. So we're not selling these cups. What we are going to do is we're going to start including them for member renewal, new member joins, and sponsor renewals. So anybody that renews an annual membership or sponsorship is going to get those as a little thank you. It's not nothing big, but it's a little thank you. It's kind of a cool cup, you know. And Jonathan, you hit the mark. I don't know if I told you, but you joined just as we received those cups. So I owe you a cup there, young man. So, but again, you'll see more of these. We'll have them at the meeting so you can see them. It's just like t-shirts, you know, we don't want to order a bunch of t-shirts and start selling because then we have to deal with sales tax. So that's not going to happen.
Tim, you still then need assistance to find a meeting location, correct?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. So, you know, the challenge that we've come up with, you know, is one, we're trying to keep it, you know, between Weatherford and West Fort Worth somewhere, preferably West Fort Worth, so that we can kind of be in the middle of everything. We're not going to Arlington or Dallas or, you know, Keller or anything like that. We're trying to stay, you know, Fort Worth, West Fort Worth area. But so many places want to charge you $300 to $500 for a half day to a day for that event. And we just, you know, we're a small group. We just don't have that kind of money to spend for that. So we're looking for a place that's a win-win for both of us, like the Texas Bank. You know, that was a great place because they got to promote, they got the visibility in front of like-minded people, real estate investors and agents and stuff. And Ruth Ann's been trying to help us with building a relationship there that may get us in the door. But we need to find a place that's a win-win for everybody. The Denny's restaurant that we found, we were excited, and then we found out their flat screen TVs broke, and they will not go buy another TV. I don't know why we're not special enough for them. We would bring them a lot of money, but as of right now, they're not going to do it. So it's a nice location. It's a decent sized room, probably as big as the hotel we were using at least. So we may try and do something there, but I don't want those Saturday events to turn into a major effort either. And it takes a lot of work to take equipment in there to get set up. I haven't tested their Wi-Fi, so I don't know if they have a good Wi-Fi system in there or not either. So we haven't given up on it. We may end up going there, but I just can't tell you for sure yet. Go ahead.
How big of a flat screen do you need, Tim?
I would say probably 60-inch at least.
Because those things are dog cheap compared to what they were a couple of years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And if hypothetically, and I'd have to pray about it, but I bet would build a lot of goodwill if say I bought them a flat screen at that Denny's on the condition that they let us use it the first Saturday of each month.
Well, that's awfully generous of you, Jonathan, but you sure don't have to do that. But thank you. So naturally, I can't.
We could all contribute $10, $20. I mean, they're only $400, $450 for, I think it was $5 for a 70-inch.
Isn't that amazing?
I know.
That's what I'm saying. You know,
I remember years ago when flat screens first come out. You know, you're talking
thousands,
$2,100,
$2,000. You know, I mean, just crazy. But that's an option too that I really hadn't thought about. So,
how many members do we have in the REIA?
oh, I don't know what it is. You know, we have a lot of users and you know, it's about 1,600 or so, you know, on our mailing list. So we get a lot of visibility. I think our attendance will probably improve a lot and membership will improve a lot if we can get a new location that's central to Fort Worth. It's just easy for people to go, you know, all different directions. And our
Hey, Tim.
meetings at the old Texas Bank were, you know, 30 to 50 people routinely. So
Where did you say that Denny's was?
20 in Hewlin,
20 and
right there on the corner on the south side of 20.
okay.
You
And
can't
need
miss
at
it.
least- okay, and we need at least a 40-inch flat screen, right?
I would
Or
say we probably
60.
want 60.
60.
Okay. Okay, let me.
Yeah, we
I
probably
actually
don't.
have a 60 going out. The screen is just fluttering at the top, and we're trying to replace that with a 70. So, you
Yeah.
know, it still works.
Yeah.
Might not work forever.
We're
Yeah.
supposed to be good at negotiation. Let me ask you, Tim. If I can make a deal with the Denny's and get them that big old flat screen, would you be willing to give me that subject to course you have online?
Oh, you're slick, aren't you?
Well, I'm
The
thinking.
negotiator.
Yeah, well, I'm on my buy box. I've been praying a lot about this. It's pretty much subtail, doing subject to retail, because there may not be enough margin for get investors interested in some of the deals, because I'm new, so I don't necessarily need a great big margin like a 35%, you know, or what have you. And you know, if we're known for being generous with the community, like think of how much publicity the REIA will get when it be like, hey, we had a broken TV here, and the REIA got us a big old TV here, and now we can help all these other people. You know, we can not just let the room out for the REIA on the first Saturday or whatever day, but it'd be available for other clients, which build them more traffic
Yeah.
as well. So
We wouldn't be able to
win-win-win.
control. We couldn't control that anyhow. They're gonna use it for other people too. But
Mhm.
Right.
call me next week, Jonathan. We'll work out something. So,
Okay.
and I'll give you the contact and stuff at the restaurant as well. Thank you for your kindness.
Tim,
Thank you, Tim.
Mortgage is
You're
still
welcome.
working on a couple of things for me, so I'm going to continue trying to build that relationship there too if we need it.
Well, I'm thinking about going to take him out to lunch here when I get settled back in here and see if we can't come up with some sort of agreement. It's probably going to help if I can meet him face to face rather than trying to have a conversation on the phone with him.
Yeah, usually more effective.
Yep,
Is that the bank or Denny's?
that's bank.
The bank.
The bank is really the ideal spot. I mean, you haven't been in there, I don't think, but they have
I
a
haven't.
huge second floor conference room that has a huge built-in display, not a flat screen, but they have a big presentation display, but they provide the projector for that. So it's just an ideal location, and they have lots of seating capacity in there. I think the room itself holds 75 people. So a lot of lighting, its own separate restroom and kitchen area. So if we had our Christmas party, which we've done there before, a lot of room for that. So just a great location, and it's very easy to get in and out of. So, but what happened was COVID hit and we got shut down, and then they got a new bank manager, and the bank manager just doesn't want to commit to letting us go back in there, except we found out that if we had a relationship with one of the loan officers that we might be able to get in there.
Excellent. Well, that sounds promising.
So no promises, but it's certainly better than what we had a couple months ago. So, okay, folks, any other questions for me at all?
I'll be talking to you, Tim.
Thank you very much.
this week. I'll give
Yes,
you a
ma'am.
call.
I'll be looking for that.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great Thanksgiving coming up and Veterans Day. We have Lunch and Learn coming up, so hopefully you can attend that. And I don't know if Sarah's got that on the calendar for the location or not, but if not, it will get posted shortly.
Okay.
We've been having some really good Lunch and Learns. So if you haven't been able to come, they've been really good. Well, you were there, Jonathan. We've had really good Lunch and Learn events. So
When's the next one?
the third Thursday.
Third Thursday. Okay.
So that would be on the
The-
16th.
Yes. All righty. I'll make it certain I can get there this time.
All righty. All right, folks, I'm gonna let you go. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.